Welcome to EPSC Pathshala. I am Professor Rani Sadashivamurthy, Department of Sahitya, Rashtriya Sanskrit Vidyapita, Tirupati. And now the subject is Indian culture and the paper is on Vedic, epic and Puranic culture of India. The present module deals with the political system in Puranas. The objectives of the present module consist of the political system of Puranas as reflected in the royal policy, and then the royal dynasties ruled India in ancient times, and also an attempt to understand the Puranic political system as it is necessary to understand the Rajadharmas, and then Rajadharmas are the duties of a king towards his subjects and kingdom. So, from different Puranas, we will get the sources, and as a part of understanding the political system of ancient Indian Puranic contents, we have to understand the importance of the 18 Tirthas, the constituent parts of a kingdom, and then principles of royal policy as found in Garuda Purana especially. These will be the aspects with which we are going to deal with. And the political system of Puranas is the royal policy. This is the first thing we are concentrating upon. Throughout all the 18 Puranas, one can see that the earth is under the rule of one or the other king only, and never it was under the rule of people as in the modern times. So, the political system of Puranic world was always a royal policy only and not people's policy it was. So, to assess the political system of ancient times, it is necessary to understand the principles of royal policy as they were laid in the Puranas. Next, the royal dynasties in Puranas. Before trying to understand the political principles or royal policy of ancient systems, we have to know about the royal dynasties, those which ruled our country as well as the earth in ancient times. According to Puranas, through several Mahayugas, the time scale of our ancient Indian system as found in the Puranas, Mahayuga is equal to the sum total of Krita, Treta, Dwapara and Kali ages. And so, through several Mahayugas and through several cycles of Mahayugas, we have been having the rule of various kings as presented in the Puranas. So, the main dynasties, those which ruled our Bharatavarsha as well as Jambudvipa. Jambudvipa is the entire earth, and these were under the rule of certain dynasties. Those prime dynasties were in the following manner. One is Swayambhu Manu dynasty. Swayambhu Manu is the Manasaputra of Brahma. From him, the entire creation started to expand. So, during that Manvantara of Swayambhu Manu, there were some kings who emerged from Swayambhu Manu. All those kings belonged to Swayambhu Manu's dynasty. And after that, Surya Vamsha, which is otherwise known as solar dynasty, and then Chandra Vamsha, lunar dynasty, and then Puru Vamsha, another important dynasty of ancient times, and then the royal dynasties of Kali Yuga. The most popular among all these Vamshas were Shat Chakravartis and Shodasa Maharajas. Among the Shat Chakravartis we have Harishchandra, Nala, Purukutsa, Pururava, Sagara and Kartaviryaarchana. And among 16 Maharajas we have Gaya, Ambarisha, Shashibindu, Ananga, Pruthu, Maruti, and then Sahatra, Parashurama, Sri Rama, Bharata, Dilipa, Nriga, Rantudeva, Yayati, Mandhata and Bhagiratha. All these Chakravartis and Maharajas ruled the earth according to the policy of Dharma, hence the royal policy was known as Rajadharma. And the principal sources of Rajadharma as found in Puranas are in the following manner. In the Agni Purana, 28th, 218th to 248th, 253rd to 258 chapters deal with the Rajadharmas. In the Padma Purana, the third one, 36th, 37th and 38th chapters are spared for explaining various Rajadharmas. Then Bhavishya Purana, in the Bhavishyat Purana we have first and 26th chapters are meant for explaining the Rajadharmas. Then Matsya Purana, in this Purana we have 213 to 226 and then 241st and 242 chapters. These chapters deal with the Rajadharmas. Then Markandeya Purana, the 24th chapter of this Markandeya Purana is meant for Rajadharmas. Then Skanda Purana is having a detailed note on Rajadharmas in the 7th and 17th chapters. And in the Garuda Purana, we have the Purvakhanda, particularly the chapters from 111th to 113th chapters, they deal with the Rajadharmas. Before understanding the Rajadharmas, we have to understand 18 Tirthas, the essentials of a kingdom. So, the king is saved and the king is assisted and the king is helped in successfully ruling the kingdom with the help of these 18 Tirthas. These 18 Tirthas are Mantri, Purohitascheva, Yuvarajascha, Bhupatihi, Panchamo, Dwarapalascha, Shashto, Antarbamsikastatha, Karagaradhikari, Dravya Sanchayakrit, Kritya Krityeshu cha Arthanam Navamaha Viniyojakaha, Pradeshta, Nagaradhyakshaha, Karya Nirmanakrit Tatha, Dharmadhyakshaha, Sabhadhyakshaha, Dandapalaha, Tripanchamaha, Shodasho, Durgapalascha, Tatha Rashtrantapalakaha, Atavipalakantani, Tirthani Ashtadasayavatu. By saying this, there is no 19th Tirtha, only 18 Tirthas are meant for assisting the king in ruling the kingdom. These are, first one is minister, the second one is priest, the third one is crown prince, and then the king, then door attendant, then kinsman, the chief of the jail, and then treasurer, afterwards advisor regarding do's and don'ts of a king, and then pathfinder, city superintendent, and then work superintendent, then dharmadhyaksha, then superintendent of royal court, then crime superintendent, then chief of fort guards and protector of the country and protector of the forests are the 18 Tirthas. So, in this manner, these 18 Tirthas are essential in ruling the kingdom for a king. And now, we proceed to learn about the principles of royal policy as found in Garuda Purana. In the Garuda Purana, we have 3 adhyayas, 111th, 112th and 113th. In all this, there is an elaborate presentation about the Rajadharmas, particularly which is known as HR or human resource management in the modern times, was presented very neatly and very elaborately in all these 3 chapters. So, the contribution of Garuda Purana regarding the royal policy is noteworthy and well classified also. It is more organized than in any of the other Puranas too. That is why it is chosen here. And then the total content is distributed in 3 chapters and of the Purvakhanda of Garuda Purana. And here in the chapter 111, we have the following aspects. First one is, a king should be vigilant in observing the movements of all his servants. He should not allow any servant to behave as he does wish. So, that is the first thing to be taken care of by the king. Then, righteousness. Dharma should be the scale in the behavior of the king wherever he wants to move. And the other human objects, artha, kama and moksha, have nothing to do with. First prime place should be given for dharma. When dharma is protected, all the other three objects of human life are satisfied and they will follow dharma. That's why he should give preference to dharma, dharmic rule. It is the backbone of the rule of a king. So then a king should collect the taxes. There is a taxation method also. Shashtamsa vritti. A king is known as Shashtamsa vritti. Means there are no hundreds of types of taxes in ancient times. There is only one kind of tax. Total income of every person is counted, and from that 1/6 of total income should be offered in the form of tax to the king. That much he has to pay. And the rest of the things can be spent as the person or the people wish to spend. That's why a king should collect taxes from the people, just like collecting the flowers from the trees and creepers without uprooting the trees, without uprooting the creepers. Similarly, he should not disturb the livelihood of the people, but he should very smoothly collect the taxes from the people. That is one thing. Just like milkman, the king should justly collect the resources of the defeated enemies and he should not allow them to drain away. This is another point to be taken care of by the king. And then the next principle is, the larger is the territory of the king, the wider will be his fame and prosperity. That's why in the process of expanding his territory, he should take every care to protect the territorial boundaries also. And then king always should take care of righteousness than wealth or power. So righteousness or dharma, it should be given prime importance always by every king. Then fulfilling the desires and enjoying riches is a very pleasant thing. When we want to enjoy something in the world, it is a very naturally pleasing thing for all, but it is all transitory. The pleasure we get from any enjoyment is momentary. So pleasure should not be given importance, but dharma should be given importance. A king should rule his subjects as his own children. That is another aspect. And a king who does not rely upon shastric knowledge is blind. So a blind person relies upon spies. So depending on spies was regretted, was denied in the Puranas. They advised the king to follow the path of Shastra. And then the kingdom of a king whose sons, servants, ministers, priests and his own senses sleep is no more safe. That's why a king should take care of the awakening of all the people about whom we said so far. One who possesses all these persons, sons, servants, ministers and priests in a wakeful state, that kingdom is always a wealthy kingdom and it can conquer anything under the roof of the sky. That's why even in defeat, a king should not lose his confidence and should not give vent to grief. Grief should not be there in the heart of the king, even at the time of defeat. He should be firm-minded and his balance of mind should be presented everywhere by the king. Next, if we go to the other aspects, there are 4 ways of testing the purity of gold. One is touching the gold on a touchstone. The second one is cutting the gold. Third one is striking the gold. And the fourth one is melting the gold. Through these 4 ways, we can test the purity of the gold. Similarly, a servant can be tested by 4 means: conduct, character, parentage and acts. Previously also, in the module on caste system, we emphasized on a particular point which was there in the Puranas, that when it is hereditarily coming from one person to the other person, from one generation to the other person, the skills in a particular activity can more perfect, and so hereditary handing over from generation to generation of the skills is stressed upon in the Puranas. That's why the parentage also is very important. When the efficiency of a servant is to be tested, then the acts, the way how he behaves, how he performs, this also is very important. In this manner, the four aspects should be tested thoroughly. Then eligibilities of Kosajaksha, and the protector of royal treasury is Kosajaksha, and he should not be greedy, he should be truthful, and he should be faithful to the king, and like that there are a list of qualities and qualifications for a person to be the chief of or to be the protector of royal treasury. And then a gemologist. In the form of gems also there will be some collections in a kingdom. That too, the collection of gems will be like heaps. When heaps of gems are collected in the royal treasury, there should be an expert to take care of those gems, and that person should be appointed by observing his abilities to evaluating the price of the gems, and then identifying the color of the gems, and then virtues of a gem. A person who has these three qualities, three characteristics, he can be appointed as a gemologist. Then one who can assess the strength and weakness of the enemy should be in place of commander-in-chief. Without knowing the strength of the enemies, if the leader of the army orders his army to attack the enemies, there will be utter failure. That's why Balabala Vichakshanam, the strength of his own army, the strength of enemy also should be known to the commander-in-chief. Such a person only should be appointed in that post. And then a door attendant, the attendant in the Antapura of the royal palace also should have certain qualities. That is, he should be in a position to read the minds of others who are entering the Antapura. That is one thing. And then he should be strong enough to prevent anybody. So, such strengthy persons only should be appointed as the guards of Antapura. Then a writer, a secretary to the king. He should be an intelligent, good at speech, wise, truthful, self-controlled, and well-versed in all the branches of knowledge. Such person only should be appointed as a secretary. Then a man with good intelligence, clear comprehension can be a royal ambassador. So, if he is missing the intelligence, or if he is not having comprehensive idea of what others are telling, and if he doesn't have the essential communicative system, he will be a failure as an ambassador. That's why a royal ambassador should have all these qualities. The word dharma is very loosely translated in the modern times as religion, but dharma means the duties to be performed, duties to be executed by every person, as an individual, as a member of the society, as a part of an organization, as a citizen, and there are several duties for everyone. Who executes such duties is a dharmic person, and a chief of dharmic activities should be in such a position to allocate various duties to all the people who are working in the royal court. That's why Dharmadhyaksha should be a scholar and knower of all Shastras, and he should have self-control also. And similarly, a royal cook, he should have inherited knowledge of cooking and should be an utmost faithful servant too. A royal physician, he should be good at the science of medicine, pleasing to all in appearance, and should have longevity of life also. Such a person should be appointed as royal physician, and a royal priest should be a scholar in the Vedas, and all ancillary sciences of the Vedas also should be known to him. He should be an expert in performing homas and japas. Such person should be placed as a royal priest. And then in the same context, there are certain things whom not to recruit. They are also mentioned. Those who are in the post of writer, or a secretary, or accountant, and any head of a civic body, if behaves lazily in delivering their duties, the system will collapse. So, they should be avoided. Lazy people should not be there in the royal court. And after that, double-tongued people also should be avoided. If a servant in the presence of his king shows his scholarship, valor, truthfulness, self-control, and other virtues, but in real times of necessity escapes from the situation, they should be avoided. They should not be given any furthermore chances. And then a king should always be careful in strengthening his fort for not to be attacked by his enemies. So, if fort is weak, it is easy for enemies to enter. That is why fort always should be strengthened and strengthened. And now we are proceeding to the chapter 113th. Here, a king should try to secure the services of the qualified and reject the incapable from the list, in as much as all virtues grace the mind of the erudite, and an illiterate fool is at best but the embodiment of all evil propensities. So, the king should take care of retaining the good people with him and avoiding the bad people. And then the royal court should be full of honest, and associate of good people should be concentrated upon by the king. So, he should avoid enmity with good, wise and virtuous people also. This is also an essential thing. And he should never encourage the association of bad people, however strong they may be. That is why. Then he should prefer to live with noble, scholarly, virtuous and truthful people to get all kinds of prosperity. He should be effortful in avoiding bad company also. How to deal with the resources? This is also another important aspect. As far as the resources are concerned, the king should be very alert in utilizing them. Just like the honeybees collect honey and preserves it in the hive, he should accumulate more and more. He should not go on consuming the available resources, or he should not waste the resources also. Similarly, wealth accumulation, this is the next aspect. Accumulating wealth also should be like that of Bhramara Pushpanyaya. And here, collecting the limited honey from each flower and not fully squeezing from it and making the hive full. These are the main aspects of a Bhramara while collecting the honey from the flowers. Similarly, a king also should collect the wealth in small quantities, and his treasure should always be full. And then the growth of the royal treasury should be on the lines of the growth of an ant hill, a beehive, and the phases of the moon during the bright fortnight. The ant hill, nobody knows when it becomes a big hill, but slowly it grows. Similarly, the royal treasury also should grow. Similarly, the hive of honeybees. Today it may be very small. Tomorrow it can be a large one. The day after tomorrow it will be larger. And some days after it will be the largest. Similarly, the treasure also should grow. And the moon during the bright fortnight, Shukla Paksha, also grows gradually, and on the day of Purnima, we can see the full disk of the moon. Similarly, the treasure of the kings also should grow gradually, but not all of a sudden. And if it grows all of a sudden, it will become empty also all of a sudden. Some essential virtues of a king. So, besides having good strength of all these 18 tirthas, the king should have the following qualities. One is righteousness should be protected by truthfulness, and he should maintain dharma, and that dharma should be supported by satyam, that is truthfulness. And then knowledge should be protected by constant and proper application, not merely learning, not merely acquiring knowledge. It should be put in practice. Practical knowledge is more important. Then the courtesy should be protected by humility. That means there are wonderful people in every kingdom. The scholars and such intelligent people, if they are properly respected, they won't go out of the country. That's why they should be respected. And then the esteem of his race, that means from which race, which Vamsha he hails, that Vamsha also should be protected well. For that sake, his character should be flawless. It should be an unblemished character. That's why, to protect the fame of his Vamsha, his character should be good. These are some of the essential virtues of a king. And in this manner, the royal policy of ancient times, as laid down in the Puranas, is the political policy of those days. All the principles of human resource development are well instructed in the Garuda Purana, and then these principles have all-time applicability for the growth of any nation at any time. Whichever was given in the Garuda Purana can be applied even in the modern times. And then all the stories of the kings presented in the Puranas also were illustrative of all the virtuous and good natured aspects presented in the Puranas regarding the healthy kingdom as presented in the Garuda Purana also.